Rogue is the first episode of Doctor Who to be released in 4 years that wasn't written by the showrunner or a returning showrunner, and how did it fare? Stick around to find out. I predicted that this episode would be fairly standard, run-of-the-mill Doctor Who, and I think it's safe to say that I wasn't wrong, which I personally think is a huge shame. New writers Kate Herron and Briony Redman should have been given a brief that was far more exciting than what we got, in my opinion. Not that I have any problem with traditional Doctor Who tales that serve as a light way to pass 45 minutes of my time, but it feels somewhat offensive to have the safest episode of the series be given to the new kids on the block. I personally wasn't thrilled by Russell T Davies' comments on upcoming writers in the industry. He feels a little bit too gatekeepy for my taste, especially for someone who doesn't always get representation and social commentary right, in my opinion. And to see him take all the inventive stuff for himself and leave the filler episodes for the new kids is a bit disheartening. I get that you want to test the waters with the newbies, but to refer back to a complaint I've given in probably every video now, and I'm sorry to do this again, but 8 episodes for this season is not enough, especially not enough to have a filler episode. By that, I mean, yes, Doctor Who is practically all filler, but this, as I said, is a very traditional and safe episode of the show, when every other episode this season has been experimental, different, and daring. Don't get me wrong, I love a good old shapeshifter story. Hell, The Thing is easily one of the best sci-fi movies of all time, and yes, that is a fact. And I think it's an idea that lends itself well to Doctor Who. It's a show that has the capacity to lightly make fun of the concept, do some interesting stuff with it that hasn't been done before, and quite literally put that kind of story into any scenario. This episode chose to do it in a posh 1800s ball, a rather good choice in my opinion. The idea of deception and false face could lend itself very well to the duplicitous and status-obsessed nature of the old upper-class England. Sadly though, this social parallel is not one the episode bothers to make use of. But the shape-shifting children do have a unique trait in that they are essentially cosplayers. There's a big running theme of fanfiction in this episode that I think works well as a fun way to justify a lot of what's happening. As I said, it's a light episode, and having the adversaries be creatures that try out skins for fun and seek out real-time scandals and plot twists for entertainment was pretty neat. And I think it reflected Rogue and Ruby pretty nicely too. Ruby too seeks out adventure and thrills, likening this particular TARDIS trip to Bridgerton, and Rogue seeks out escapades across the stars because of his love of Dungeons and Dragons, even choosing the name Rogue based on this popular choose-your-own-adventure game. Though I was a little confused about their obsession with weddings. It's a running gag throughout the episode that honestly baffles me. It starts in the rather fun and exciting cold open where the soon-to-be husband Chulda demands that Lord Barton marries his sister, only to end up marrying them himself later, albeit dressed as Lord Barton. I'd assume this was just the Chulda playing the role of the bride-to-be, Emily's brother, but they're later described as a family of Chulda, so, I don't know, incest? Maybe I'm reading into it too much, or maybe not enough. I was just a little confused by it all, in a story that should be very simple and easy to follow. I will say also that the design of the Chulda was nice, another case of Doctor Who alienifying an earthbound animal, in this case birds. The sound design used for them was also rather cool and very appealing and stand out to the ears. And of course it was nice to see Indira Varma return to the Whoniverse, famous among fans for her portrayal as Susie in Torchwood. But anyway, the Chulda merely serve as background fodder for the main aspect of the episode, that being what it's named after, Rogue himself, who I'm sure will be important in the series going forward. I would like to preface this section by saying that my opinion on romance in Doctor Who heavily clouds my perception of this character. If your problem with Rogue revolves in any way around them being gay, then this show really isn't for you, and I have no idea why you ever watched it in the first place. But if your problem with Rogue is that the Doctor is far too interesting of a character to ever need a romantic partner, then yeah, me too. No, I did not like Ten and Rose, No, I did not like 11 and Amy, or 11 and Clara, or 13 and Yasmin. Okay, I kinda liked the Doctor and River, but that's a whole video for another time. And no, I do not like 15 and Rogue. Okay, that's a slight lie. I think Jonathan Groff and Ncuti Gatwa are pretty electric together. I enjoyed their dynamic, their banter, and even their flirting. It does feel like it's heavily retreading ground laid out by Captain Jack and the Ninth Doctor from back in 2005, but remaking something that worked previously for new audiences isn't necessarily a bad thing if there's new substance to provide, which I don't feel was provided in this episode. I think there are hints of deep characterization sprinkled throughout the episode for Rogue. Him travelling on his own, struggling to carry on, his lust for adventure and jadedness following isolation was all nice to see. But I feel like 45 minutes that aren't completely devoted to him is not enough to get me to care. If Rogue was a recurring character in the season like Susan Twist's character, or even if they were a pseudo-companion like Captain Jack in Series 1 or River Song in Series 5 or 6, this may have been executed much better, but unfortunately introducing them and quote-unquote killing them off in one episode was just too quick for my taste. I'm sure they'll be back, if not I'll be very disappointed, but that doesn't change the fact that the episode playing up their dramatic exit with swelling music and a flood of tears from Ncuti felt cheap. I like actually feeling things, not being told how I should feel from media. It's a problem that modern Doctor Who has struggled with for a while, pretty much the entirety of its run, and I definitely feel it getting old now that I'm older. This is maybe a personal thing, don't take my word as gospel, but this episode felt like it was really trying to force emotions out of the audience that it couldn't even conjure up to begin with, like with the Ruby fake-out death. I mean, really? The second fake-out death for Ruby in this season, despite the fact that in neither episodes 3 nor 6 was I actually emotionally invested in her. It's just a ridiculous sentiment, isn't it? The cheapness of it too rubbed me the wrong way. The electricity and screaming like previous victims of the Shilda, Ruby cracking her neck accompanied by snapping bird-like sounds in the same way that the Childa do throughout the episode, even though she was herself the whole time. And a damn flashback to a scene we never even had with Carla, trying to convince us that she's dead and the Doctor failed on a promise we, again, never saw him deliver. Wow, that's lazy writing. Again, issues with the 8 episodes consisting of 45 minutes season we've been given. I will keep saying it, because it keeps being a problem. But anyway, back to Rogue. Their exit, as I was saying, feels very similar to this fake-out crap that was pulled with Ruby. The passionate kiss, discarding of the ring, and flowers on the place of their quote-unquote death was all too much for me. I've had zero chance to engage and emotionally connect with this character, and this episode treating me like a child, telling me I'm supposed to feel sad about their loss, didn't help. But aside from this failed attempt to pull on the heartstrings and my personal distaste for romance in the show, I liked the character a lot, especially on a rewatch. Their awkwardness and embarrassment of their nerdism was quite endearing in my opinion, scrambling desperately to turn off their Kylie Minogue playlist and failing to roleplay with their crush was all hilarious stuff, as was the humorous reveal of the D&D dice that I touched on briefly earlier. Their deadpan comedy with the Doctor was also fantastic to watch. The gags about brooding, the rudeness displayed on the balcony, threatening to murder the Doctor, quips about the TARDIS being shed-like, much lesser than his grandiose asteroid hopper. Man, yeah, that was good. I especially loved the gag where he refers to the Doctor as Doc, which was not taken very well at all. It was very reminiscent of the William Hartnell era of the show actually, something I just finished making my way through funnily enough, so that was very heartwarming to see. And again, the promise of a great character is in there, with the loss of a previous partner, the jaded, morally ambiguous and stern front of a bounty hunter and so on, and I really hope it gets expanded on next season, because let's be real, he's not gone for good. I just hope their character is given more room to breathe next time. As for the two leads, of course, the Doctor worked wonderfully, especially because his connection to Rogue this episode was so fun. There were some very unexpected but welcome character beats here too though. The compassion and the fury of the Time Lord shone through at multiple parts here, boasting about the legends and mystique of his own heritage, with all of his previous faces popping up. Wait, is that Richard E. Grant? And the line, "I can't let you kill it, I also can't let it kill others," was such a fantastic hero line that I always love to hear from the Doctor, followed by a vengeful glee of the Childers suffering later on. Truly wonderful stuff that reminded me so much of Doctors like McCoy, Tennant and Capaldi. Unfortunately, I felt that Ruby got the short end of the stick here yet again. She didn't get much to do other than wander around gossiping about men all episode, and when she does finally engage with the plot and the villains of the week, it's done so in an instance of incredibly poor writing that I highlighted earlier. Her B-plot was also just pretty lame in general. The character of Emily felt super underwritten to me, especially the twist that surrounds her. On a rewatch, there are definitely breadcrumbs planted that she is a Childer bride, but it really isn't set up well either. Like, she pretends to be shocked by everything weird that happens, like Barton transforming and a dead body being splayed out upstairs, but none of the other Childer do this, so she's playing the role of Emily exceptionally well for reasons that are unclear to me. Rogue states in the episode that the Childer leave no witnesses, so I'm not sure why she doesn't either just kill Ruby or transform into her upon them discovering the corpse, or even before that, given how fascinated she is with Ruby all episode. Especially because of how brutal the rest of the family is throughout the story, and how brutal she intends to be herself at the end. Speaking of the end, I actually thought the resolution was alright. Ignoring everything with Ruby that again felt very forced in the emotions department, the setup of the triangular trap worked very nicely for me, although it did feel a little lazy to not show the Doctor or Rogue setting up two of the three pieces. They just sort of materialised with no setup. Did the Doctor and Rogue arrive in the ballroom, place them, run out and go upstairs to the balcony all in the time it took the Childer to turn up? It feels a little unlikely in my opinion, but otherwise the Chekhov's gun was fired nicely, and I hope this alternative dimension they get sent to comes back to play a fun role in a future episode, especially because Rogue is almost certainly returning from there. I also want to highlight the production value of this episode. I don't normally focus heavily on this stuff, but I feel like I've been a little harsh on this episode, so I'll make an exception. While I think the music is working a little overtime at parts, specifically the emotional moments, the violin renditions of popular songs like Poker Face and Bad Guy were really fun and inventive for a story like this. The set design is marvellous, as are the prosthetics on the Childer, and Rogue's ship was absolutely fantastic. It was such a junk ship, I loved it. Messy, dirty, atmospheric and steampunk as hell, exactly what I want from a Doctor Who spaceship. But guys, can we hurry up and build the second half of the TARDIS set? It becomes increasingly obvious that half of the walls are just missing, because they are really running out of good camera angles to use for the set. And yes, this was also a problem I had with Russell's first era of the show. Please, can we get this fixed? I like a full set to run around and work with, not half a picture that makes me feel like I'm missing out. It also makes half of the TARDIS feel stuffed and the other half feel really barren. But yeah, overall, I wasn't really a fan of Rogue, but there were definitely some positive elements. I obviously have personal issues that detract from my enjoyment, but otherwise I just found it to be a bit boring, a bit patronising, and a bit too safe for my taste. I don't want to be harsh on it, but it's just how I feel. It reads like wasted potential to me, and that's why I really hope these new writers are given the big boy pants next season. Overall, I give Rogue a 5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching, I hope you liked the review. Let me know your thoughts on the episode in the comments below, and if you agree or disagree with anything I've said here. Be sure to subscribe and turn notifications on to stay tuned for my review of the season finale. I'm not sure whether to review both episodes individually or review the finale as a collective, but you'll find out soon enough, I suppose. Anyway, as always, I've been your host, Mr. Greaves. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.